So over the past few months, I've really been focused on and interested in the idea of the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. So in this video, I'm going to try to do the best I can to express that through my own experience, with the intention of leading people into love. Because for me, my goal is to grow in love. And what I mean by love, as I've said in other videos, it is the ability to be hated and still speak the truth. And I do believe that there is an objective truth. I do believe that there is a moral code that is inscribed within all of our hearts, a common sense, if you will, and the ability to speak the truth, and to speak the truth not in a finger wagging kind of way, but in a loving way. And I think Jordan Peterson expressed this point very well in a video that I saw recently. And he says, you tell people that you love how to avoid the road to hell. You don't do that because you're shaking your finger at them or because you're a moral authority, and you do it because you don't want them to burn. I think there's too much of the moral authority still and not enough of the love that helps people avoid hell. And he's right. And I'll go into a thread that I just put out on Twitter and speak about it a little bit more after, how these tie in. The letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Rules to live by versus rules understood. Every man is born once. The second is a choice within. We all make decisions in our lives based off two operating systems. One is what we do, and the other is why we do it. Every man has made mistakes in his life, but not every man has taken responsibility for those mistakes. The letter of the law constitutes what the right way is. The spirit of the law constitutes why that is the right way. The letter of the law comes from the spirit of that law. Experience is the teacher. We must make mistakes to learn from them. Either we follow common sense or we ignore it and experience it for ourselves. Either way, common sense, a moral code is there, whether we listen to it or not. Each decision to follow or not follow this code has its consequences. Like any other decision we make in life, we will experience pain. And as the saying goes, there's the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. The pain of regret weighs heavy on a man's heart, and it is understandable why many choose this path, because the fear of judgment lingers. When you take responsibility, you are listening to the inner judge, the common sense, the conscience, the highest ideal that commands repentance through first forgiveness, and then willfully aiming to the highest good through action. A man who truly seeks forgiveness seeks it within himself, Christ within, the pathway between forgiveness and judgment. He first owns his mistakes and aims to go the path that is the right way, not for a reward, but for itself, because the right path for its own sake will lead to a life of meaning, which is the ultimate reward. It is painful at first because it forces you to live in a wholesome place, one of discipline and forgiveness, in a world that told you to follow your heart aimlessly. You understand that the battle we face is within our own heart. This battle is the same that everyone else is facing. Forgiveness is only reserved for the strong, because only the strong have the capacity not to take anything personally, because only people who are blind can hate. The other path is down the path of regret. This pain weighs heavier and heavier, and at the end of this path is projection onto others, and ultimately self-destruction, because to destroy others is to destroy yourself. To make the enemy outside of yourself is to make yourself the enemy. The pain must find an outlet, and the deeper the pain, the more it is pushed on others. This pain can be numbed with porn, alcohol, drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, attention seeking, but eventually it must be faced. The capacity to forgive is to want freedom within a man's heart. You see his suffering expressed in his actions, and to react is to pedestalize the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. The spirit commands right action through responding, not to punish, but to free a man from his pain. This expression focuses on the heart of a man instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. We are all at different places in our lives, and the ability to teach others can only come from the ability to reconcile the letter and the spirit within ourselves. You're only capable of loving thy enemy when you know thy enemy. To know thy enemy is to know thyself. The enemy is sin, ignorance within. So I put that together today because, and I just thought about this at the end of reading this, is that what we're collectively hungry for is an objective truth. We're looking for a father figure. We're looking for someone to say, this is the rule, but the rule is within us, and we have to seek it within, or we don't. We can ignore it. We can say there is no God, which essentially is a law, a code of being that is a harmonious code. It's a code that brings stability. Now, if I just go around judging people, right, that's not stability, because I have my own sins within me. So I have to face myself. I have to take ownership, and I have to do the best that I can to articulate why something is wrong. And we live in a world that wants to say it's a subjective reality, that there is no moral way. Just live and let live, be free. These vague statements that they don't have any foundation. There's no root. I feel this way. I just want to feel happy. On a surface level, of course, we all want to feel happy. That goes without saying, right? But you don't tell a drug addict it's okay to just do drugs, right? But your heart mourns because you don't want them to do the drugs. You don't want them to drink alcohol. You don't want them to live the wrong way. And in the more polarizing things, because we've lost the meaning behind them, no sex before marriage, stay away from alcohol, stay away from drugs. You say these not to finger wag, but you realize that if your foundation is just based off feelings, the need to feel good, right? You don't have the meaning that can sustain the pain of life, because life is painful. Life is going to punch you in the face. People are going to be mean to you. The people that you love are going to be mean to you. And the ability to not react and get pulled into the hell that is within all of our hearts, that we're all trying to find that peace, that heaven within. The only way that you can do that is by having that foundation on love, which is that foundation of God, which is the foundation of truth, why you do what you do. When you see people suffering, it's, if you believe in an objective reality like I do, you believe that, you take, for example, a good father, what he does is he sets rules up in his house. Right? If you have for those of you who have a strong father figures, a good father sets rules in the house, not because he wants to be a tyrannical father. And there are fathers who out there. To me, that's not the loving father. The loving father is the one who sets the rules, right? But he also gives freedom for people to make their own mistakes. A good father says, stay away from alcohol, stay away from drugs. And he tries to express why, right? And share his own experiences. Be honest with your children, right? That you can express it in a way that you're not trying to be this finger wagging and you're not going to do this and you're not going to do that. When you get to the root of why, people naturally don't want to do it, because people don't want to experience negativity. Nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I'd love to feel pain. They don't do that. So we learn these two ways. We learn through either we're hungry to understand this existence and the meaning behind it, the whys behind life, the things that give fulfillment instead of happiness and desire, or we can choose to ignore that. We can choose to seek feeling good. And we can't escape this. See, this isn't finger wagging. This is based on my own experience. Most of my life, I've sought to feel good. And if feeling good is your God, you end up suffering. Everyone has a God, right? But if emotion and feeling is your God, then it's a bottomless pit, because you'll always need someone else to make you feel good or get something outside. The foundation has to be on something that is more sustaining. And that when that foundation is built off of why, it's built off of principles, it's built off of seeing others as yourself. You treat others as you would like to be treated. You are a mirror to other people. So if you're just nice and you don't speak the truth to people and you're afraid of conflict, this is all emotion. You're afraid of this rejection. Oh, they may not like me because I say something. Your foundation is the principles of why you do what you do. So when you're quote unquote mean to people, it's bad. You're not mean. You're not going out of your way to be a bully. You're not trying to be mean to people. You're speaking the truth based on your own experiences and digesting those experiences, learning from the pain, and then moving forward and not being afraid of saying, hey, you're going the wrong way to somebody. A good friend says you're going the wrong way. And he does it out of a place, as Jordan Peterson says, out of love. He does the best he can, right? If you go into hell, you don't want other people to go into hell. And of course, the pushback is, who are you to decide what hell? And this is where you have to always, no matter what you say in life, you have to make a decision that through your own experience, your own and interpreting your experiences, you have to make a decision what that right way is. You have to have your moral compass. You have to have a compass that you believe. What do you believe is right and wrong? And your ability to express the right and wrong is, again, through your experience. And if you're not able to do that, then you're going to live blind. You're going to be fooled. You're going to fall into traps, right? This is how a lot of people will end up in poor relationships, because people played on their heartstrings, right? And because they were so blinded by their own emotions, they didn't have the capacity to guard their heart. So they were fooled, and then they guard their heart even more. And that's the experience. That's the experience of guarding their heart. And there's a healthiness in guarding your heart. And there's a healthiness in expressing your heart and expressing emotion. But wisdom tells you when to do it and when not to. And you only get wisdom by being hungry for a deeper truth, by seeing the pain and looking at the pain in the world and saying, I don't want that, right? I don't want that. And when you see other people, Alan Watts says a good teacher is like someone who removes a cancer from you, but leaves you intact. I think a lot of people end up committing suicide because they can't find that why. Why go on, right? Why even continue? Because they've seen there's so much pain in their lives. So then when they're hungry for a deeper truth, why go on? How can I deal with this pain? The pain of existence, the pain of the suffering of life. A man who has a why can bear any how. So the deeper the why, the more you're rooted in love, in a true state of love. You're in love with life itself. You are life itself. You're a human being. You're full of life. That's what people are hungry for. And that's the only thing that I think can sustain life is love. And again, that is that balance between reason and emotion. And in a world that wants to just tell you live in the moment, YOLO, you can ride that ride, and everybody has to. That's the freedom. That's a loving father has to let go of his children to make their own mistakes and be there when they come back and say, I shouldn't have listened to you. I should have listened to you. You were right. Any parent knows that, every parent has to come to terms with that. And especially now in this world that, we're losing that idea of an objective truth. That objective truth isn't going anywhere. Either we are aligned with it or we're not. It's the universal principle, the yin and the yang. We can obey the laws of the world. I didn't create them. This isn't, follow Michael Bacchioni's law. It's the laws of how things are. And the more that we go against them, the more that we suffer and we live in pride. We say, no, this is my way. Well, I'll make this work. And you'll know people by their fruit. You'll know them, by their actions. You'll know them by when they confront, when people are in disagreements, they don't know, they collapse. They don't know how to articulate themselves. And I understand, because guilt and shame are very heavy. They weigh heavy on a person's heart. Because when you look at the person in the mirror and you say, wow, I could have been so much more, that guilt and shame is heavy. And you need somebody who's gone through that, who's faced that within themselves. Those are the only people that can lead you out of it. That's why I say in this, the people who have gone through the experience of it. And this is why I think a lot of churches lost, not all, but a lot of churches have lost this. They've lost the spirit, right? They've lost the spirit. Christ himself said, You read the words, you read the scriptures daily, and in them you think you have life. It may not be the exact quote, but the meaning, the spirit of that is what's important. He's basically calling out Bible thumpers of the day. You think you read a book and that makes you spiritual. No, the book doesn't make you spiritual. The book's it's a pointer. One person can read the book and become crazy and go around doing horrific things. Another person can have the book and they find that freedom within themselves. So it's not the book. The book is a pointing. The same thing happens with people. Don't worship man. Don't worship a person. Worship the truth. Worship. That's the idea of worship God, because and the higher the truth, the more power is within it. And that's what gives you the capacity to express that. And that's what I wish for everybody. That's why I made this channel, for two reasons. One is I want to grow in that. Because if 2020 taught me anything, it taught me that we are this close from losing everything. How quickly people fight against each other, how quickly people hate each other. I mean, families divided, friends divided, hating each other, hating the opposite political view, and not realizing that there's a bigger picture, that we're all being divided against each other. This is so much bigger than a political thing. It's no longer political. It's, do we want freedom or do we want enslavement? And we will enslave ourselves. And the only way that we find freedom is within ourselves. It's within our heart. And it's the ability to communicate the truth in a loving manner, like a loving father. A loving father says, this is the right way. This is why it's the right way. And you communicate that to other people. You don't go out of your way. You speak to those who have the capacity to hear. You don't finger wag, as Jordan Peterson says. You don't go around saying, don't do this and don't do that. That's the worst person that's the worst Christian. Because the truth is we're all hypocrites. And that's why I tried to express this in the best way that I can, is that we're all hypocrites. We've all fallen short of the glory of what our full capacity is. If we just trusted in life, that we did the best thing, we did good, not to be rewarded, but we did the best that we could. We did the right thing, even though when other people sinned against us. And it hurts because we hurt each other. Think about the people you've hurt in your life. Think about it. Think of every single person that you've ever met in your life. Every single interaction. How pure was each interaction? How much responsibility weighs on your own heart for each interaction? How much responsibility do you take? And it's heavy. I know it's heavy. You don't have to live too long to know how heavy it is, how just a little bit of blindness can really eat at you. But the pathway to redemption is always there. And that's the other part. You have to have judgment. You have to have a standard. You have to say, hey, man, that's not how you treat people. You should be ashamed. You should feel shame and guilt. You should. These aren't bad things. It's a bad place to live. I wish no one lived in guilt and shame. But one of the greatest things you can do in your life is say, hey, you know what? I got all this guilt and shame, man. I've done all these things that are wrong and I don't know a way out, and owning those. And then starting to ask the questions, well, what would the best version of me do? And how can I outweigh that guilt and shame? It's like a scale. Everyone has guilt and shame, right? And a lot of it's hidden. It's the white lies we say every single day. And just going to a supermarket, you can just see how robotic we are. All the white lies that people say, the gossipy culture that we have. How many people have the courage to say the truth to somebody? How many people have the courage to judge other people, right? To make judgments. But they have the capacity to do so because they first judged themselves. They looked at the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror. They said, you know what? I don't like this person. This person isn't a hero. This person isn't a winner. And it hurts. And I have guilt and shame. And I've hurt other people. I've hurt myself. And I want to get out of this. And then you have to go out into the world and you have to be the best version of yourself. And people aren't going to kiss your ass. They're not going to recognize you. You have to keep doing it because you're not doing it for recognition from other people. You're doing it because the world is hungry for real people. The world is hungry for goodness. We want to be rewarded for every little thing. The reward is itself. But you only learn that when you make mistakes. And when you see other people make mistakes, you don't judge them. You judge yourself first. If people ask you, they ask your advice, I think you hate the sin, not the sinner. That's the whole idea, is that to truly love somebody, you have to hate sin. You have to hate ignorance. You have to. If someone's walking into hell, someone's walking towards a cliff, and you say, I'm going towards the cliff, and that's what I think is the right thing. And who the hell are you to tell me not to walk off the cliff? You have to make your best argument and say, but you have to live your own life. And you need both of those. So that's the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. The letter is the what to do, and the spirit is why you do it. So in all actions, try to grow in the why you do what you do, and let go more of the what. Because when you get to the core of why you do what you do, you no longer do it. You do it, you truly do it for its own sake. You don't do it to get something out of someone. You don't do it to look good. A lot of people do good to look good, which isn't good. You can't escape the paradoxes within this. You do it inside yourself. You do it within. You hold the door open for somebody at the store, not for them to say thank you. You do it because it feels good to do right things. You do it for its own sake.